Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about 10 lessons for a post-pandemic world by Zakaria. Now, full disclosure, I don't know who the author is before I bought the book. I bought it because the title is interesting. Because after the pandemic, there are obviously a lot of people who lose their mind because of how chronically online they become during the social isolation and loneliness from the pandemic. The obvious example is Twitter and how it became a rage-bait fiesta for fascist ideology along with its new owner descent further and further into madness. Another obvious example is Joe Rogan. He has always been someone who is chronically online in a different way than Elon Musk, and he has always been a useful idiot for a lot of anti-intellectualism talking points like anti-vaxxer for example, that is now helping shape the world that the next generation will go through. But after COVID, he has definitely leveled up from a useful idiot for anti-intellectualism that sometimes apologized that he's been duped to a useful idiot who supported America's fascism and oligarchy with his ever so charitable take on their action. But back to the author, unfortunately, he's a liberal Zionist, and by liberal, I don't mean in the sense of America's cute sense of politics, I mean actual scratchy liberal fascist bleed kind of guy. At least from what I can find on him with some light googling. But I've always been of the belief that a messenger can still carry some good message no matter how bad the messenger is. Just because a smoker told you to stop smoking doesn't mean it's good to smoke. The book starts with a brief and unnecessary history of plague, how it always have consequences, which, yes, the plague changed the history of Greek where Sparta was against them, accelerating the end of ancient Greek. He also talked about the bubonic plague and Spanish flu, all the pandemics that happened when we still use Greek held ideas of humor. But still, even back then, we already knew that social distancing, isolation, masks, and hand washing were the keys to combat the spread of the plague. After that, we have more pandemics from the bird to the swine and more, and we learned a lot from them, how they break out and when will they break out. And since we have the data on how these tiny viruses often evolve before COVID hits, we already knew what to expect. But many countries, including America, was not as prepared as their scientists, and it shows. America's government under Trump's first presidency somehow only made bad moves. I mean, America in general made bad moves. Even YouTubers who have thankfully become more mature now, Dr. Mike, went into a birthday party in a different state. The other include COVID into one of the economic shock to America economy. COVID is the third, the second is the market crash like the real estate bubble crash, and the first is 9/11. And these three crises is one of the first lessons that the author gave. One of the main causes for 9/11 was America, which I'm glad the author at least shows a little bit in the book. It didn't go in depth to CIA involvement with its most expensive operation, and it did not include US aid involvement in the process. The author of course also did not include that the Iraq war was ultimately just for oil and that the WMD Bush is looking for is a lie. But at least the author shows a little awareness that 9/11 was America reaping the seed that they sowed for their violent imperialist action in Middle East. But from all these three economic crises, it shows how fragile the capitalistic system that America, or even most of the world, is running right now. Part of why COVID happens is how we are currently manufacturing our foods, especially the meat. It just so happened that COVID started in China, but with the way we are currently handling our ecosystem, it didn't matter if COVID did not happen. Something else will eventually pop up somewhere. How do you think the bird flu and swine flu pandemic started? It's because of how we are handling our animal products. COVID just happened because we have not learned anything from those pandemics, and it is predicted to happen again in 2035 unless we finally learn not to keep using the current capitalistic system, at least on nature. Because with the current way, not only it is causing climate change but also pandemics. Unfortunately, just like with climate change, it's not something that can be changed just by individual local response like me and you. There is a need for a systematic change on a governmental and industrial level. If there's no change, it will only get worse for everyone, especially lower and middle class of society, which is most of us. Lesson 2 is about the quality of a government, which I know, coming from America that is first world country but only for a limited number of people at the top, is very much the smoker telling people to stop smoking. But the author do recognize that and highlighted how inept the American government, not just Donald Trump who is the president at that time, but also across the board, top to bottom, just incompetent at handling the COVID and many other of the country issues. The author then goes through the history of how American government got worse and worse throughout history. It's basically what America led Doge and Elon Musk did to their own government, but over and over again. Their two-party system also consistently shoot themselves in the foot by making it a blood sport competition against each other so much. One party always holds the other back, whether what they're trying to implement is positive or not. So the only thing that gets approved are often things that do nothing. Meanwhile, in lesson 3, the government are all too busy normalizing making capitalism as the default thinking for everyone, even though it is obviously making things worse and worse. America used to be able to sell the way they market capitalism as American dream, but America is not the only country that is doing the American dream, and it is even the worst right now with them moving deeper and deeper into fascism under Donald Trump. If they could somehow tax the rich so that at least they can bounce back a bit from all the economy fallout that the country have during Trump's tariff war and insider information, then they should. Then the fourth is about expertise. During COVID, a lot of people, including some country leaders, all refused to listen to experts, to doctors and scientists who have studied and practiced for decades. Instead, they watch a few clips, scroll through social media posts for a bit, maybe listen to a couple of podcasts or skim through an article or two and consider themselves better than the expert and not just wasting their time on the internet. And we need to stop those behavior and go to a place where the expert and the non-expert started talking to each other instead of it becoming a nonsensical debate that wastes everybody's time. The fifth lesson is about digital, and he is not talking about social digital, it's about tech. The author just goes on and on about technology and about AI and started imagining what life would be like in the future once technology and AI take over everything. It's a weird chapter and I'm pretty sure there is no lesson to be learned here. The sixth lesson is about how much we are social animals. This is also a weird chapter where the author goes on and on about how civilization was made, how city and urbanization comes to be, how metropolitan city comes to be, how New York City comes to be. This chapter I think is the most out of touch the author present whatever this is. He just concluded that we are social animal and we will be alright, forgetting that what people do online, being antisocial on the internet, will then make them become antisocial offline. The seventh lesson is about inequality, which is what America has been built on if we see how the owner of the land, the Native America, has been treated and how much worse racism in America is to most countries. And also how normalized it is there to have debts when their healthcare is so bad that you can make content out of surprising people abroad with the cost of everything in America. It is so bad that people are on the side of the guy who allegedly killed a healthcare CEO, but the book did not seem to want to say much about the systematic inequality in America, as it just concluded that every human beings are equal, which rang hollow considering the genocide defense article the author wrote in the future. Then the eighth lesson is about globalization, which is the most liberal chapter ever since it doesn't mention at all about American imperialism, about their neo-colonization, none at all. So it really feels like it's just there to get more number in. Then the ninth lesson is how the world become bipolar. And again, since the author skipped every American imperialism history, he of course also skipped the imperial boomerang. How a lot of this bipolarism is a big part due to America showing a lot of discord using US aid and more. And of course, those discord and then used on their own people, making them more bipolar with liberal versus conservative or woke versus anti-woke sentiment, despite there are more than just those two. Instead, the chapter becomes the most blatant liberal racism where China bad. Then the book ends in a whimper with a very thesis deep message about how the best realist is an idealist, then proceed to talk poetry and such, which is as hollow as it sounds. The book is actually much better than I expected, to be honest. At least at first, even if some of the explanation does goes a bit all over the place, but it just got worse and worse. This book really feels like the author only have a grasp of about 3 to 4 good points, but forced himself to write whatever to get into 200 pages, the golden number for book sale. It also feels so outdated for a book written in 2021 because a lot of what is written feels like it is just based on surface level of what is relevant at the time. And by skipping any subject on imperialism, most of it feels like scratch a liberal or fascist split talking point, especially because it is very relevant to some of the topics in the book. It's really hard for me to recommend this book because only about 1/3 of the book is worth anything. I give this a 1.75. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.